Julian and Eva, what do you think good looks like in this space creatively? It'd be good to get your views.
So I think it was really interesting. So during the pandemic, I was working on Unilever, on the beauty and personal care brands, and suddenly all the plans that we were looking at in terms of creative plans, in terms of the projects, all of that just went up in the air. And we and our brands were a little bit lost because, to Julian's point, like behaviors had changed enormously. But the brands that actually came out on top in pandemic year, and when I mean on top, like they would quickly react, and actually, we were able to prove the effectiveness of campaigns. Like we won awards around campaigns for creativity, we won awards around campaigns for effectiveness. So the ones that came out on top were the ones that had the right systems in place, and they were the ones that were tapped into social, and the ones that were using like data solutions to be able to quickly, like when the external situation changed, like dive into the community managers and say, guys, like what's happening? And with that information, like it was a first view. We looked at it a bit, it was a first view combined with, the challenge that the brands told us about, like, oh, this has changed. Like, what does this mean for our brand? The big questions they were asking. We were able to go to them with proactive ideas. We were able to shape the campaign briefs that they were putting into this and pivot. I mean, it was, I think, the word of the moment in the pandemic, but we actually did. And it was those brands that had the, the capabilities built to have more one-to-one connections and to quickly get that response versus, waiting. I mean, research can sometimes take like 1 to 3 months, even longer. So they were the brands that were equipped for change, and I don't think that's going to change. I think social before pandemic, data, was sometimes seen as a nice to have. You weren't always putting budget behind it, but now it's just absolutely essential. I think they're lifelines for brands and for creativity.
Mm-hmm. I think the pandemic, in my mind, really just accelerated something that was happening beforehand. It didn't really change anything other than the timeline, right? And the urgency in a certain degree, at least when it comes to marketing. And what I've seen, and I think everybody who has been in a big pharma at that time, is there was this frantic charge to translate everything we were doing beforehand just digitally and remotely, right? Beforehand, it usually was a mix of face-to-face and digital and remote, best case, right? And then everything needed to happen remotely. And this is where all the creative energy flew into, right? I think what really the companies are realizing now is, since we digitalized the analog world, now competing in a space for attention with information that is much more ample, right? So in terms of attention spans, different like sources of information. If you have a face-to-face conversation with somebody, you kind of have a monopoly for that time frame, right? You don't have that on your iPhone. So I think that's it's a really interesting thing, and where I see a lot of marketing teams looking into applying their creativity, not to just provide information, but rather what can we do beyond, what is the value proposition of our promotional engagement beyond just the information. This is where to me, the next kind of wave after the initial digitalization of everything goes into.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And there was such a, I think we all found when the pandemic hit, there was an adrenaline charge in a way, wasn't there, of everyone thinking, right, we need to move on this, we need to be different, and we need to think differently and be agile. And now, as you said, Julian, it's about what the next phase is. So really interesting to hear your view of where you think that's evolved to next.